Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining me today because what you are about to hear might completely change the way you look at a simple 10-cent coin, especially if you have ever ignored a dime in your pocket. Because today we are diving into the unbelievable story of the 1988 D. Roosevelt Liberty Dime, a coin with a face value of just 10 cents that under extraordinary circumstances has been rumored, discussed, and theorized to be worth as much as $27 million. And before you think that sounds impossible, stay with me because the world of rare coin errors, mint mistakes, and freak anomalies has produced some of the most valuable objects ever discovered in American numismatic history, and this small Roosevelt dime sits at the center of one of the most fascinating possibilities collectors can imagine, beginning with its origin at the Denver Mint in 1988. A year when millions of dimes were struck for everyday circulation, making this coin appear common at first glance, yet within those millions lies the rare potential for catastrophic minting errors that transform an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-lifetime artifact, because coins are made by machines, humans, metal planchets, dies, presses, and timing, and when even one of these elements fails in a dramatic enough way, the result can be something so unique that collectors, museums, and private investors are willing to spend astronomical sums to own it, and the 1988 D. Roosevelt dime becomes extraordinary when we explore the extreme combinations of errors that could exist on a single specimen, starting with planchet errors where the dime might have been struck on the wrong metal entirely, such as a silver planchet intended for proof coins, a foreign coin blank, or even a transitional metal composition that was never meant to be used, instantly multiplying its value from cents to millions. Especially if the weight, metallic signature, and strike characteristics confirm it as a one-of-a-kind survivor. And then there is the possibility of a double denomination error where the dime is struck over another coin, such as a cent or even a foreign denomination, leaving ghostly overlapping designs that prove a once impossible minting accident, and collectors crave these because they represent undeniable evidence of mint chaos, and when authenticated and paired with the Denver Mint mark, rarity skyrockets further. But the real leap into multi-million-dollar territory comes from catastrophic die errors, including multiple misaligned dies, rotated dies beyond standard tolerances, or even clashed dies that were never properly repaired, causing repeated impressions of distorted Roosevelt portraits, fractured lettering, or missing elements that should never disappear. And if such a coin also exhibits a dramatic off-center strike while still showing a full mint mark and partial date, the desirability becomes explosive because collectors want errors that tell a complete story, and the story becomes even more powerful when we consider mint mark errors, since the 1988 D. Roosevelt dime carries the Denver Mint mark punched into the working die, meaning mistakes at this stage can produce doubled mint marks, misplaced mint marks, tilted mint marks, or even repunched mint marks that were never meant to escape the mint, and while minor examples are already valuable, an extreme mint mark error combined with multiple other mistakes could create a coin so visually shocking and historically important that it transcends normal valuation logic, especially if the mint mark appears in an impossible location or is partially missing due to grease-filled dies, creating a mystery that demands investigation. And then there is the possibility of a mule error, one of the most valuable types of mint mistakes ever known, where the obverse and reverse designs come from two completely different coin series, and while no confirmed 1988 D. Roosevelt dime mule is publicly known, the hypothetical discovery of one would instantly rewrite numismatic history, because mules are among the rarest and most expensive coins on Earth, often selling for millions even without perfect condition. And imagine a Roosevelt dime obverse paired with a completely unrelated reverse, authenticated by top grading services, instantly placing it in elite collections and auction catalogs. And condition plays a critical role as well, because if such an error survived in uncirculated or mint state condition, untouched by wear, scratches, or cleaning, the value could multiply again, as collectors are not just buying a mistake, they are buying perfection within imperfection. And when we talk about $27 million, we are not talking about a typical collector buying a coin for a shelf. We are talking about competition between billionaires, institutions, and legacy collectors who want to own something no one else on the planet can own, and the Roosevelt dime is especially symbolic because it represents modern American coinage, making a monumental error even more shocking since quality control was supposed to be advanced by 1988, which means any error that escaped inspection had to be extraordinary. And another path to extreme valuation lies in wrong die pairings, such as a proof die used for circulation strikes or a die from a different year mistakenly paired with a 1988 working die, producing impossible design combinations that defy mint records. And if such a coin also displays die cracks, die breaks, or cuts that distort the rim and lettering, the visual impact alone could justify staggering prices. And let us not forget missing design elements, such as a missing mint mark due to die fill paired with doubled inscriptions or missing initials, which on their own are collectible, but when combined with other errors can elevate a coin into legendary status. And then there is the human factor, because sometimes mint workers discovered errors and attempted to correct them improperly, resulting in hand-altered dies that created irregular strikes never meant for release. And when those coins slip into circulation, they become historical evidence of internal mint processes that were never documented, making them priceless to researchers. And provenance matters as well, because if such a 1988 D-dime were discovered in a sealed mint bag, an original roll, or an estate connected to mint operations, the documented trail would add credibility and value, and the market psychology cannot be ignored because coin values are not determined solely by metal or age, but by story, rarity, demand, and the emotional response of collectors, and the idea that a tiny dime could outperform famous gold coins captures public imagination, driving bidding wars that push prices beyond rational expectations. And as social media, YouTube, and online auctions amplify these stories, a single sensational discovery can ignite global attention overnight. And if a verified 1988 D. Roosevelt dime with unprecedented errors were announced, the numismatic world would erupt, with experts analyzing die states, metal composition, strike patterns, and mint records, while collectors scramble to secure ownership. And the $27 million figure becomes plausible when you understand that there are collectors who already pay similar amounts for unique artifacts, and a one-of-one modern US-era coin with undeniable authenticity would sit comfortably among them. And this is why people are encouraged to check every coin, because history has proven time and again that life-changing discoveries often come from the most ordinary places, like pocket change, old jars, or forgotten collections. And while the odds are astronomically low, they are not zero, and every confirmed error begins with someone who looked twice at a coin others ignored. And the 1988 D. Roosevelt dime stands as a symbol of that possibility, reminding us that value is not always where we expect it, and that mistakes, when rare enough, can become masterpieces. And whether or not such a $27 million example has been officially confirmed, the potential alone keeps collectors searching, learning, and hoping, because the next historic discovery could be sitting quietly in circulation, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. The way you look at loose change, because what if I told you that an ordinary-looking one-dime coin, something most people toss into a jar or spend without a second thought, could under the rarest circumstances be worth up to $30 million, yes, $30 million, and the coin at the center of this incredible possibility is the 2007 P. Roosevelt Liberty dime, a modern coin with a face value of just 10 cents. But one that under specific minting errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters around the world. So stay with me because by the end of this video you may never look at your pocket change the same way again as we dive into the fascinating story, the history, the minting process, the rare errors, and the extraordinary chain of events that could elevate a tiny 2007 P dime from everyday money to a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic legend worth millions. Now, to truly understand how this is even possible, we need to begin with the Roosevelt dime itself, introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a figure deeply associated with the fight against polio and the founding of the March of Dimes. The coin has been produced continuously for decades and is one of the most familiar coins in American currency. By 2007, the dime was being struck in massive numbers using modern high-speed minting technology, making the idea of a modern dime being worth millions seem almost impossible at first glance. Yet history has shown again and again that rarity is not always about age, but about mistakes, and the more advanced the technology becomes, the more dramatic and unexpected the rare failures can be when something goes wrong. The 2007 P. Roosevelt dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally uses the P Mint mark. Though interestingly, Philadelphia did not use a mint mark on most coins until later years, and by 2007 the P Mint mark was standard on dimes. The coin is composed of a clad structure with a copper core sandwiched between two layers of copper nickel, weighing approximately 2.268 grams with a diameter of 17.91 millimeters. Millions upon millions were produced, and most are worth exactly 10 cents. But hidden within that massive production run are the theoretical and in some cases documented possibilities of catastrophic mint errors that, if combined in the most extreme way, could create a unique specimen unlike anything else known, and uniqueness is the cornerstone of astronomical value in the coin collecting world. One of the most important error categories that could push a 2007 P dime into the multi-million-dollar realm is a wrong planchet error combined with a transitional metal composition. Imagine a dime that was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another country. Or more dramatically, on a planchet composed of precious metals such as gold or silver left over from experimental or test strikes. While this sounds unbelievable, history proves it can happen. Coins like the 1943 copper penny and the 1944 steel penny exist because of leftover planchets from previous years. Now imagine a 2007 dime struck not on a standard clad planchet but on a 90% silver or even gold alloy planchet never intended for circulation. And now imagine that this planchet was not only the wrong metal but also the wrong thickness, weight, and diameter, yet still struck with full Roosevelt dime details, creating a one-of-one transitional wrong planchet error. If authenticated by a top grading service and confirmed by the United States Mint as an accidental release, such a coin would instantly become one of the most famous modern errors ever discovered. But that alone might not reach 30 million, so we must go deeper. Another major value multiplier is a mint mark error. Specifically, a mint mark that should not exist or exists in an impossible form. The 2007 P dime should carry a standard P mint mark, but imagine a coin that shows a D or S mint mark instead, or even more extraordinary, multiple mint marks overlapping, inverted, or doubled in a way that defies known minting practices of the modern era. Even more extreme would be a mint mark that does not correspond to any U.S. mint facility at all, a phantom mint mark, something never officially used, which would suggest either experimental dies, sabotage, or a previously unknown minting event. Collectors pay massive premiums for coins that challenge established records, because they rewrite history, and rewriting history is priceless in numismatics. Another critical factor is die errors, and the most valuable examples are those involving dramatic die clashes, double strikes, off-center strikes combined with full dates and mint marks, or multiple strike errors where the coin was struck 2 or 3 times while rotating between strikes. Now imagine a 2007 P dime that was struck once normally, then struck again off-center by 50%, and then struck a third time with a rotated die of 180 degrees, all while being struck on a wrong metal planchet. This combination of errors would be considered a mint error trifecta, something so rare that it would likely be unique, and uniqueness in modern coinage is where values can skyrocket beyond traditional price guides. Then there is the possibility of a mule error. A mule coin is struck with 2 mismatched dies, such as a dime obverse paired with a reverse from another denomination or even another year. Mule errors are among the most famous and valuable modern errors, and some have sold for hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on rarity. Now imagine a 2007 P Roosevelt dime obverse paired with a reverse never intended for circulation, perhaps a test reverse, a foreign coin reverse, or even a reverse from an experimental design never released to the public. Such a coin would represent a breach in mint security and protocol so severe that it would become an instant legend, drawing attention not only from collectors but from museums, historians, and the media, driving its value into uncharted territory. Another layer of value comes from condition. Even the most dramatic error must survive in high grade to reach peak value. Imagine a coin with all these errors preserved in near perfect mint state condition, with sharp details, minimal contact marks, an original mint luster, grading at MS-68 or higher. The combination of extreme error and exceptional condition is incredibly rare, because error coins are often damaged, mishandled, or discovered after circulation. A pristine example would be a miracle, and miracles are what multimillion-dollar coins are made of. Provenance also plays a massive role. If such a 2007 P dime were discovered by an ordinary person in pocket change, then authenticated, then traced back to a specific batch or event at the mint, the story alone would add enormous value. Collectors don't just buy metal. They buy stories, and a coin with a documented trail from circulation to discovery to authentication becomes a living piece of history. Another factor that could push value toward the $30 million mark is legal clearance. Some error coins have faced legal challenges regarding ownership. But if the United States government were to officially acknowledge the coin as a legitimate mint error released into circulation and allow private ownership, that official recognition would legitimize the coin in the highest possible way, opening the door for elite collectors and institutional buyers to compete for it. Competition is the final and perhaps most powerful driver of extreme value. When two or more billionaires want the same unique object, price becomes almost irrelevant. Auctions have shown time and again that when ego, prestige, and rarity collide, records are shattered. Now let's talk about why the year 2007 specifically matters. 2007 was a period of high production and modernized minting processes, which ironically makes extreme errors even more shocking, because quality control was supposedly tighter than ever. A catastrophic error escaping detection in this era suggests either a rare mechanical failure, human error, or experimental activity, any of which would be of enormous interest to researchers and collectors. The Roosevelt dime design itself adds emotional value, as it represents freedom, resilience, and American history, and coins tied to iconic figures often carry greater appeal, especially when paired with unprecedented rarity. We must also consider the possibility of struck-through errors, where foreign materials such as cloth, grease, metal shavings. We are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious coins ever talked about in modern American numismatics, the 1984 D. Roosevelt Liberty Dime, a tiny 10-cent coin that on the surface looks completely ordinary. The same coin millions of people have spent on coffee, candy, or parking meters, yet according to collectors, error specialists, and long-time coin hunters, certain extremely rare versions of this dime could theoretically reach values as high as $24 million. A number so shocking that it forces us to rethink what we believe about money, value, and the hidden secrets sitting quietly in our pockets. So stay with me, because by the end of this story you will never look at a dime the same way again. The Roosevelt Dime series began in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, honoring his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II and his role in founding the March of Dimes, and by 1984 the dime was already a well-established coin, produced in enormous quantities by the United States Mint, including the Denver Mint, which marked its coins with a small D mint mark just to the left of the torch on the reverse side, and in that year alone hundreds of millions of dimes were struck, meaning that under normal circumstances a 1984 D dime is worth exactly 10 cents, maybe slightly more in pristine uncirculated condition, but never anything life-changing, unless something went terribly wrong during the minting process. Because in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are not always failures, sometimes they are miracles. To understand how a simple dime could become worth millions, we need to understand how coins are made, because every coin starts as a blank metal disc called a planchet, which is fed into high-speed presses where engraved dies strike the design onto the metal with tremendous force, and when everything works perfectly, the result is a clean, uniform coin identical to millions of others. But when even the smallest variable goes wrong, such as a misaligned die, a damaged die, an incorrect planchet, or a mint mark punched in the wrong position or not at all, the result can be a unique error coin, and uniqueness is the foundation of extreme value. One of the most talked about possibilities surrounding the 1984 D. Roosevelt dime is the existence of extreme mint errors combined into a single coin, something collectors call a multi-error coin, where several rare mistakes occur together rather than just one, and while minor errors may add a few dollars or a few $100s to a coin's value, A perfectly documented multi-era coin with historical significance and absolute uniqueness can reach astronomical prices, especially when collectors with deep pockets compete for ownership. One of the most important factors is the mint mark error, because during the early 1980s, mint marks were still punched manually into the working dies rather than being part of the master hub, which means human error played a role, and this opens the door to several rare scenarios, including a missing D mint mark on a coin that should have one, a repunched mint mark where the D appears doubled or shifted, an inverted mint mark, or even a mint mark punched in the wrong location entirely, and when such an error occurs on a high mintage coin like the 1984 dime, it creates a dramatic contrast between commonness and rarity that collectors find irresistible. Imagine a 1984 dime struck at the Denver Mint but missing its D mint mark entirely, making it appear to be a Philadelphia issue, yet with other characteristics that prove it was actually minted in Denver, such as specific die markers or metal composition anomalies. This alone would be a major rarity. But now imagine that same coin also exhibits a dramatic off-center strike, where the design is partially missing, yet the date and main features remain visible, creating a visually stunning and unmistakable error. Add to that a double die obverse, where Roosevelt's portrait shows clear doubling in the eye, ear, and lettering, a result of the die receiving multiple misaligned impressions during its creation, and suddenly we are no longer talking about a normal error coin. We are talking about something that defies probability. But the story does not stop there, because some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered involve wrong planchets, meaning the coin was struck on metal intended for a different denomination or even a different coin entirely, and there is ongoing speculation among error specialists about the possibility, however remote, that a 1984 D Roosevelt dime could have been struck on an experimental alloy or a foreign planchet, resulting in a coin with incorrect weight, thickness, and metallic composition, which would immediately set it apart as a minting anomaly of the highest order. During the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was experimenting with different metal compositions due to rising copper and nickel prices, and although the dime officially remained a copper-nickel-clad coin, the presence of experimental or transitional planchets in the mint facilities raises the theoretical possibility that a small number of coins could have been struck on unintended metal. And if such a coin exists with full documentation and authentication, its value would not be measured in thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, but in millions, because it would represent a physical artifact of a hidden chapter in mint history. Another crucial factor in the legendary valuation of the 1984 D dime is the possibility of a dramatic die cap error, where a coin becomes stuck to a die and continues to be struck repeatedly, forming a cap-like shape that transfers distorted impressions onto subsequent coins. And while die caps are known in the error collecting world, a fully developed die cap on a dime, combined with other errors and a clear date and mint mark, would be exceptionally rare, especially if it escaped the mint unnoticed. There is also the possibility of a blockage error, where a previously struck coin becomes lodged between the die and a new blank planchet, resulting in a mirror image impression on one side of the coin, and when blockages occur on small denominations like dimes, they are often weak or incomplete, but a strong, full blockage with additional anomalies could elevate the coin into legendary status. The $24 million figure often discussed among collectors is not based on face value or metal content, but on the hypothetical convergence of absolute rarity, historical intrigue, visual impact, and collector demand, because in the high-end numismatic market, value is not linear, it is exponential, meaning that once a coin crosses a certain threshold of uniqueness and desirability, its price can skyrocket beyond conventional expectations. We have seen this before with coins like the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, which sold for tens of millions despite having a face value of $20. And the reason is the same: rarity combined with story. And the story of a 1984 D Roosevelt dime that somehow escaped the mint with multiple catastrophic errors would be nothing short of legendary. Another layer to this story involves the possibility of proof dies being accidentally used to strike circulation coins, resulting in unusually sharp details, mirror-like fields, and frosted devices on a coin that should never have had such characteristics, and if such a coin also carried a Denver Mint mark, which proofs of that era did not. It would represent a minting contradiction so extreme that it would immediately attract global attention. Then there is the concept of mule coins, where dies from two different coins are paired together incorrectly, and while no confirmed 1984 Roosevelt dime mules are known, the theoretical possibility of a dime obverse being paired with an incorrect reverse die cannot be completely dismissed, and if such a coin were ever discovered, authenticated, and traced back to the Denver Mint, its value would be essentially unlimited, constrained only by the willingness of collectors and institutions to compete for ownership. The emotional power of such a coin also plays a role in its valuation, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying mystery, discovery, and the thrill of owning something that should not exist. And when a coin like the hypothetical $24 million 1984 D dime enters the conversation, it ignites the imagination of both seasoned numismatists and everyday people who suddenly wonder if the spare change in their drawer could hold a life-changing secret. The appeal is amplified by the fact that the Roosevelt dime is so common and so overlooked, making the idea that one could be worth millions even more compelling, because it represents the ultimate underdog story, a coin designed for daily use that transcends its humble purpose and becomes a symbol of hidden value. It is also important to understand that such valuations depend heavily on authentication and provenance, because a coin claimed to be worth millions must be verified by top grading services, examined under microscopes, weighed. World of rare coins. Today we're diving into a story that sounds almost unbelievable at first glance but has captured the imagination of collectors across the globe. The mysterious and potentially ultra-valuable 1976 Roosevelt Liberty One dime, a coin most people have seen, spent, or ignored without a second thought, yet under the right circumstances and with the right combination of rare minting errors. This humble 10-cent piece has been rumored, speculated, and theoretically valued by experts and collectors at figures reaching as high as $18 million, a jaw-dropping number when you consider its face value is just 10 cents, so stay with me as we explore how such a dramatic leap in value is even possible, why errors and mint mark mistakes matter so much, and what hidden details could turn an ordinary 1976 dime into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Because coins like this aren't just money. They're accidental works of history, technology, and human error frozen in metal, and the 1976 Roosevelt dime sits at the perfect intersection of all three, beginning with its historical context, because 1976 was not just any year in American coinage, it marked the bicentennial of the United States, a time when the nation celebrated 200 years of independence. And although the dime itself did not receive a special bicentennial reverse like the quarter, half dollar, or dollar, it was still struck during a period of extremely high production, immense public interest in coin collecting, and heavy pressure on U.S. mint facilities, which is important because when mints operate at maximum capacity, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes escape quality control and enter circulation, creating the rare anomalies collectors dream of. The 1976 Roosevelt dime was struck primarily at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with proof versions coming from San Francisco, and under normal circumstances, most of these coins are worth exactly 10 cents or maybe slightly more in pristine condition, but what changes everything are extreme and unusual errors, especially when multiple errors appear on the same coin, because error stacking is one of the biggest drivers of astronomical value. And this is where the legend of the $18 million dime truly begins. Imagine a 1976 dime struck on the wrong planchet, for example a planchet intended for a foreign coin, a silver planchet, or even a clad layer mismatch. Already this alone can push values into the thousands or tens of thousands. But now add a dramatic off-center strike where a large portion of the design is missing yet the date and mint mark remain visible. Then add a double die obverse so strong that Roosevelt's profile appears doubled, with split serifs on the lettering of Liberty, and in God We Trust clearly visible to the naked eye. Then include a rotated die error where the reverse is turned at an extreme angle relative to the obverse, something far beyond the minor rotations commonly seen, and then add a mint mark error, perhaps a missing mint mark where one should exist, or an overpunched mint mark showing traces of another letter beneath it, or even a repunched mint mark that creates ghost-like shadows around the D or S. Each of these errors alone is rare, but together they create something almost unheard of, a coin that should not exist. A coin that represents a perfect storm of mechanical failure, human oversight, and historical timing, and when collectors talk about values in the millions, this is the kind of coin they're talking about, because rarity isn't just about age, it's about probability. And the probability of all these things happening to one dime and surviving in collectible condition is astronomically low, which is why some experts argue that if such a coin were authenticated, graded, and offered at a major auction, competitive bidding among elite collectors and institutions could theoretically push its value into eight-figure territory, especially if it were the only known example. And that brings us to another crucial factor: population reports. Because value explodes when a coin is unique or nearly unique, and with era coins, many are one of a kind by nature, unlike standard issues where millions were struck. An extreme era dime like this might be the only survivor ever discovered. And uniqueness is the ultimate currency in high-end numismatics. Collectors with deep pockets aren't just buying metal. They're buying exclusivity, prestige, and the right to own something no one else can. And when you combine that with the Roosevelt dime design itself, a coin honoring Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the most influential presidents in American history, the emotional and historical appeal adds yet another layer of desirability. Especially for collectors who focus on presidential themes or 20th century U.S. history. Now let's talk more about mint mark eras specifically, because these are often misunderstood. In 1976, mint marks were still being punched into working dies by hand, which means human error played a direct role, and this created opportunities for misplaced, doubled, repunched, or even missing mint marks. A 1976 dime from Denver without a D mint mark, for example, could indicate a die intended for Philadelphia was mistakenly used or altered. And if metallurgical testing and die analysis confirmed this anomaly, it would dramatically elevate the coin's status. Especially if paired with other errors, then there's the possibility of transitional errors, where leftover materials or dyes from previous years or experimental compositions are accidentally used. While no officially released 1976 dimes were struck in silver for circulation, the discovery of a genuine silver composition 1976 dime struck for circulation would shake the numismatic world, because it would represent an undocumented deviation from official mint records, and coins that contradict official history often become the most valuable of all, because they force experts to rewrite what they thought they knew, and rewriting history has a price, a very high one. Condition also plays a massive role, because errors are often found on heavily circulated coins, damaged, worn, or altered, but an error coin in high mint state condition is exponentially rarer. And if this hypothetical $18 million 1976 dime were preserved with sharp details, original luster, and minimal contact marks, its appeal would skyrocket. Grading services would scrutinize it intensely, and a top-tier grade paired with authentication would give wealthy buyers the confidence needed to invest millions. And yes, at that level, these coins are investments, museum pieces, and status symbols all at once. Now you might be wondering whether such a coin has actually sold for $18 million. And the honest answer is that values at this level are often theoretical, based on comparisons to other legendary era coins, like the 1943 copper penny or the 1913 Liberty nickel, coins whose values climbed steadily as their stories grew, discoveries were confirmed, and competition intensified. Those coins weren't always worth millions, but today they are, because time, scarcity, and storytelling matter, and the 1976 Roosevelt dime, if discovered with the right combination of errors, could follow the same trajectory, especially in an era where social media, online auctions, and viral videos can instantly bring global attention to a single coin, increasing demand overnight. And that's why stories like this matter to everyday collectors and viewers like you, because extraordinary finds often come from ordinary places: pocket change, old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten rolls tucked away in drawers. The next revolutionary discovery doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits quietly until someone looks closely enough. So when you hear about a 10-cent coin, potentially worth millions, it's not about hype alone, it's about understanding how the minting process works, how errors occur, how rarity is defined, and how human curiosity turns mistakes into masterpieces. The 1976 Roosevelt dime represents that idea perfectly, a common coin transformed by uncommon circumstances, and whether or not an $18 million example ever officially emerges. The possibility alone keeps collectors searching, learning, and dreaming, and that's the true magic of numismatics, because every coin has two values, the number stamped on it, and the story hidden inside it, and sometimes, when everything aligns just right, that hidden story can be worth millions.